Hello, everybody. My name is Eliana Light. It's really great to be with you. This is my colleague, Rabbi Rebecca Ben-Gideon. And before we talk to you, we would like you to talk to each other. If you can open your guidebook, if you can find where it says JEIC Models of Meaning or something like that. If you click on that, there will be a tab that says Wrestling with God. That is what we do and what we are doing here. I've started using my podcast voice. If you click on that, you will see something that says God Interview Questions. Please click on that. And please find someone in the space that you haven't done a lot of talking to with yet. That wasn't a real sentence. And connect with them for around 4 minutes around these questions. What does this bring up for you? Find someone you haven't talked with a lot yet and discuss these questions for 4 minutes, which is not enough time. Ready, go. Hello, everyone. It's great that if you feel like you've been brutally cut off, that's good, because it means that there's more to talk about. So I really like that. Given that it is the Omer, I will now do what have I called it? A dramatic reading of some song lyrics. Dear Skyman, up in the sky, are you friends with all the birds flying by, or are you too high up to see them? Dear Skyman, looking on us below, is there anything that you don't already know? Like where I will go, why, what, and when? My teachers tell me all of your stories of the miracles that you can do. Arcs and floods and a bush that is burning. I can only assume it's all true. They say I should love you. They say I should talk to you, and I try. I close my eyes and imagine a dude in the sky. Do-do-do-do. We won't do that part. Dear Skyman, who created us all, can you really lift me up when I fall, or are you too tall to reach down here? Dear Skyman, do you like when I pray? Can you listen to every word that I say? From so far away, does it sound clear? My teachers tell me all of your powers, how you give people things they ask for, healing the sick or feeding the hungry. You could do all of this and do more. They say I should love you. They say I should talk to you, and I try. Close my eyes and imagine a dude in the sky. Now, I know you're not really a man, per se, but the image still forms in my mind. I've tried to change it. I'm not sure that I can, because it's been this way for a long time. I want to be near you. I want to be close to you, and I try, but when I close my eyes, I still picture a dude in the sky. I'm wondering... Yeah, Rabbi Rebecca singing the song in her head. It's there for you if you would like to listen to it, but I'm wondering if that image resonates with anyone. That dude in the sky sort of thing. Behind you.
I mean, for me, I think that's the way it used to feel, right? Until a certain point in my own spiritual development where it didn't feel like that anymore. It felt much more ever-present and closer.
But it used to feel that way.
It did.
Anybody else once at some point in their life have that sense? Where do you think that came from? Anyone can raise their hand and be handed the microphone, I suppose. Where do you think that came from, that idea?
Coming out of our conversation.
Yeah.
The questions was this tremendous need for the concrete at an early age, and not really being able to understand the abstraction, not having the developmental skills to engage in a deeper but more abstract layer of comprehension and understanding.
Yeah. Looking back on my own kind of God journey, as an adult, I almost felt silly. Like, I can't believe I used to think that that's what God actually was. But developmentally, it makes a lot of sense that that's where we go. Yeah.
And I would say that it's reinforced by language in the Tanakh, where God is portrayed as Melech and Avinu. And so it's only natural that our mental image that would form would come directly from the words that are used in Tanakh, and that it's about the human experience.
Yeah, it's reinforced in Tanakh. It's reinforced in liturgy, again, when we don't have the notion that it's poetic and abstract. As Anim's Mirot tells us, we're not actually there, right? We're using all the imagery that we can muster, but the words are never enough. And then we see images of God in paintings and in cartoons and on TV, and we use the word God the same way other religions do, and we get that image in our heads. And even though we want to end up at a place where it's not necessarily concretely that anymore, that's where our students start from, many of them, and it's good to acknowledge that, especially the students that we work with, who Rabbi Rebecca is going to tell you about now.
I am. And Andrew, your comments are right on the money for where our kids are. So I am from Greensboro, North Carolina, and we met at camp, and we decided that we would do a project with my middle school students who are grades 6 through 8, and they're coming from unaffiliated, reform, conservative, a couple Chabad. I mean, it's really the gamut. And as you said, they really are in this place where they have the capacity and the desire to move from the literalist and anthropomorphic God ideas that they grew up with and into a space that is copacetic with their growing rationalist approach to learning about the world. And so we last year started to engage them with the question, what do we mean when we use the word God? And we used tefillah, we used music, text study, art, interactive discussion to access their emotional and their intellectual selves. And we also amassed, Eliana did all of these video interviews with rabbis and teachers and artists, and she asked them the very same questions that we put to you, that you are talking about. And so through those exemplars, and by engaging with all these different modalities, we wanted to give them the sense that this is something you can talk about. It's not just like yes or no, God, believe, not believe. It's experience and wrestle, and this is going to change. So we had some really cool artists and for them to listen to, and they could see how that person's ideas and feelings about God, how those changed from their early life through becoming more mature. And our goal really was to give them, A, the space to wrestle, and B, the tools, the vocabulary, the words. And Dude in the Sky it has become, when you listen to it, you will know why. Aside from just being a really excellent poem, it's the catchphrase in that shorthand among the students for what they used to think about God, or the God that they don't believe in, or just this problem that we were talking about earlier. How do you relate to God if God isn't a person? And I want to just throw, before we close, I want to read you one thing that a 7th grader wrote. They do journaling, and so that's an additional interaction after the sessions. And the 7th grader, we had done an exercise where we put different names of gods on hexagons, which have 6 sides, and they could connect each name with up to 6 other names and sort of organize them like a concept map. And he had taken all sort of like the abstract names and put them on one side, and all the anthropomorphic names and put them on the other. And he had Hashem in the middle. And here's what he said. He said, why not just talk to God? And then about the abstract names, he said, I didn't like these names, and I didn't know why. But I realized a few nights ago, it's because the conversation I would have with God would sound fake. If you're talking to a friend, you wouldn't call him friend, owner of a cool trampoline in your backyard, or brother of my friend's brother. You wouldn't call God thing or presence in the wind, because that doesn't sound like a conversation. I would like to talk to God as a person. I don't think that he is a person, but I don't think I should suck up to him. It wouldn't flow with me. It's not like buttering up the guy would make things work for me. I just want to talk to him, and that's just by talking to him. So I was very happy when I read that, and it made me feel that we had really started to give the students the tools with which to wrestle with God, and hopefully you can close out with sort of our vision for where we hope that will go.
Yeah, so this year, instead of starting from the abstract place, we've been starting with the weekday Amidah, which being kids in a day school, they all know the liturgy, and we've been using that as a map to talk about not just God, but prayer, because so many of the questions and the issues we have about prayer, the kids say all the time, wow, God must have a really fragile ego, a really big ego if God needs us to say how great he is all the time, right? That's language that our students use. And it's important that we take, I think, our questions about God seriously, because questions about God are questions about how the world works. It's looking around the world and thinking, if someone was actually in charge, would there be this much tsuris, right? Would there be death? Would there be illness? And kids coming to terms with that. And I think it's important, this is something I didn't have as a kid. I thought Dude in the Sky was what I had to believe in, because nobody told me otherwise. I just assumed it was a Jewish idea. And it made sense to me until it didn't, when I was 18 years old and my father passed away, and it couldn't make sense anymore. And that's where a lot of these questions come from. And so we want to give students a space to say, right, not only are you wrestling with God, but everybody has, right? The question, why is the world like this? The psalmists had that question, and the prophets had that question, and Jews have had that question for millennia. And that your ideas about God can change over time, and give them the permission to do so. And we're hoping to make the curriculum itself replicable, and also hoping to add on to that professional development for the teacher, because it's important, you know, as we learn today, that it come from a place of heart and giving. So I think there's time for one question.
Thank you so much. That was very inspiring and meaningful. One quick question for you. I really appreciate approaching the discussion about God from a place of love, Ahavat Hashem, and kind of shying away from the fear and the awe. But I'm curious, how would you talk about the fear and the awe? Because there is a whole world of Yirat Hashem, of him being almighty. And I'm not sure we can ignore that. So I'm curious how you think about that.
Yeah. You want to?
Yeah, sure. I would approach it with the middle schoolers from the perspective of what you do matters, and it matters to God. And God, I always think of the Unatana Tokaf, which is like super scary, right? But it's also super, God, I always think of it as God having like a parent-teacher conference, like a one-on-one to evaluate how you've been doing, right? God cares about each of those little sheep passing, but cares about us individually and wants to talk about what we've done. And so I think that that's, for middle schoolers, we have a social justice orientation in our curriculum, and I want them to know that they, you know, it comes from love, but it also comes from, ultimately the fear thing is someone holding us accountable, right? So that's how I would...
Parent-teacher conferences is a great metaphor.
I'm glad you like it.
I want to add something to that. In that, when you brought up Unatana Tokaf, which I used to hate, but I now love, I like to reinforce to the students that Tefillah was written by people. It might be seen as a remix of lines from Tanakh, but somebody decided what lines to use, and somebody decided what order to put it in. Somebody wrote the Unatana Tokaf. It was a person's experience of God in the world. And it's there for us because trying to put into words experiences is really hard. But that's almost what we're asking people to do. We are using the words that other people put their experiences to as our own words, but that's not enough. And we admit that to ourselves in many places in the liturgy, right? Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata. You're beyond all of this. We're trying. We're using words the best that we can. And also, to talk about the three types of prayers, we use this the kind of schema of thanks, help, and wow. And the idea that wow is both wow for good, wow, a mountain, wow, a rainbow, wow, the earth exists. And wow is also for bad, right? Wow, this giant wave is beautiful and it could also wipe me out, right? There's something kind of scary in that wow, and leaning into that is really important, not pushing it away, but also saying that you don't have to have the same ideas for God that the writer of Unatana Tokaf did. You can have your own.
Thank you. Thank
I'd
you.
say.